What's up guys, welcome back to the channel, and in this video we're going to be working on this 2004 Honda Accord and we're going to be replacing rear brakes. Let's get started. Alright, so to start, if you don't have an air or electric impact gun, first thing you want to do is break the lug nuts loose with a breaker bar, but I'm going to use my pneumatic impact, so what I'm going to do first is actually jack up the car, get it up on jack stands safely, and then I'm going to remove the wheel. Now in this car you could either lift it up from the tow hook, or you could go underneath the lower control arms in the back, which is where I'm going to go, and that's how you get it up a little higher. All right, 19mm socket, let's take the wheel off. So the first thing we have to do is actually take out this bolt right here. That'll release the brake hose from the knuckle. There we go. As you can see, these brakes are in extremely poor condition and the pads are almost metal to metal, so these definitely need to be changed. It's horrible, really bad. All right, next take the slider pin bolts out, 14mm. And remove the caliper. Oh, e-brake. Okay, and remove the caliper. Next, take the caliper bracket off, which is these two bolts right here. These can be on kind of tight, so be prepared for that. And bracket comes off, and you can pull the rotor off also. If your rotor does not come off easily, it's probably just frozen to the hub. So you can either use two 8x125 bolts and drive it out, or you can just smash it with a hammer until it comes off. All right, next let's clean up the hub surface. It's not looking too bad, but it's not perfect either. So I want to clean this up, get it nice and smooth. Okay, while that's drying, remove the hardware, remove the slider pins. If they're frozen, you can use some heat and some WD-40 and spray it in there and unfreeze them. And if they're really, really stuck, you're probably going to need to buy a new caliper bracket. In my case, they're moving, but they don't really want to come out. There you go. That's just a sign that the boots are actually good. So take those out. They're both the same, so you don't have to worry about mixing them up. But what you want to do is clean them up a little bit. Clean them up with a paper towel or a rag or something, and make sure it doesn't have a lot of rust up there where the boot sits. Do the same to the other one, and then we'll grease them up. To clean the boots, you can shove a rag through them and just kind of squeeze them. That'll squeeze the grease out of them. Doesn't have to be perfect. Next, if you have a bore brush, that would be great. If not, then just do your best with brake clean. But if you have a bore brush and brake clean, put brake clean in there, spin the brush around in there, get the grease cleaned up. That way you can have nice fresh grease in there with no dirt. This is what a bore brush looks like. You can use it on a drill, impact driver, whatever you have. This also works great if you had seized pins and then unseized them. That'll remove some of the, or most of the rust that's in there. Next thing you want to do is clean up these areas. I only have some surface rust on here, so a wire brush should do. But if you have large chunks or raised areas or whatever, you might want to grind it down, make it flat, but just don't grind out too much because then your pads are going to just woohoo! Slide around all over in here. You still want to make them fit well. If you needed to, you can take a screwdriver or a pry bar and kind of chisel away at the rust that's here. if a wire brush doesn't do it. At this point, if you don't have new hardware, you can clean these up too if they're not in too poor of condition, but I have new stuff, so I'm just going to use that. If you have to clean it, you can just wire brush it, and usually they're stainless steel, so it should come right off, as you can see. Next step is to put the new hardware on, so we're going to put some lubricant on here. I like to use silicone paste, but you can also use caliper grease if that's what you have. You don't have to put a lot on, just enough to coat it so it doesn't rust in the future. And now you take your hardware, make sure it's centered, and then squeeze it on here. By the way, all the parts and tools that I'm using are going to be linked in the description. Next, put the rubber boots back on here. They have two sides. One has a narrower lip and the other one has a wider lip. The narrower lip goes into the caliper. The wider one goes on the pin. There we go. And I like to add a little bit of grease inside of there and then lube the pins. That was a little much, but whatever. And that's because a lot of what you put on the pin, if you put a lot of it on, it'll just come right off on the boot. All right. Now there's grease on the end of the boot here, but if there isn't, make sure you put some on the pin so that when it presses in there, it seals up. And to get the air out, you press it and you squeeze on the boot. There you go. If there's any excess grease, it'll come out with the air. And same to this one. Get this spring retainer off of here. Again, I have a new one. I'm replacing this so I can bend it till it comes off, but sometimes it's annoying to take these off. Plus the caliper doesn't move a whole lot because it's still attached to the emergency brake cable. There you go. Inspect your caliper. Make sure it's not leaking or this boot isn't torn. Next, you need to get yourself one of these tools because these calipers don't retract by being pressed in, but by being turned and pressed in. So you need to find the right combination of pins on here. Get your 3/8 drive ratchet, turn it clockwise. Alright, so you'll notice that many things have changed. First of all, broke the bleeder screw. I tried to open it. That doesn't work. So forget about that. Just push the piston back. It's fine. Just go slow. Next thing I did was actually mount the caliper back on so I can have it secured. That way I can push the piston back, not have to hold it as much. You still have to hold it because it's going to want to slide out. And as you can see, it worked out fine. Piston's all the way in. I'm going to take this back off, but the piston's retracted. Next, I want to apply some anti-seize to the hub just so I can prevent rust from building up in the future. It'll help the rotor not stick on there and like rust on there. That's way too much. Perfect. Next, take the rotor and I'm going to put it on backwards first so I can clean off the cosmoline oil coating that they put on at the factory. Just spray a little bit of brake clean on there and with a paper towel, just wipe it clean. Turn it over. Alright, next I'm going to put my caliper bracket back on. The torque for these is 29 foot-pounds. I like to just snug them with my long ratchet. There you go, just make them tight. Next you want to put on the pads. The one with the squealer goes on the inside and the squealer needs to be on the bottom. Make sure the pads slide easily within these brackets. If they don't, then that means there's too much rust up there and doesn't allow it to slide. You can use a lug nut to hold on the rotor if you want. And lastly, before the caliper goes on, this bracket spring retainer here has to go in, and it's a little tricky. I'll show you exactly how it goes on after I put it on, but basically these ears have to hold on to this area and these will push down on the pads like that. There we go. So as you can see, these hold on here. These will push on the pads. So line those up. There we go. And these get torqued to 19 foot-pounds, just like the other ones. I just make it snug. Alright, so I got the other side done. Now we're coming back to this side, and last thing is to put this little bolt back in that holds the brake hose to the knuckle. Alright, let's get the wheel on. Let's get the car back on the ground. Next you want to torque the wheels. I'm going to torque it to 80 foot-pounds. Now that we've done that, the job is complete. Don't forget to pump up your brake pedal. Check your master cylinder to make sure it's still full and has good quality brake fluid in it. And having said that, I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope it was helpful. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.